Good afternoon. I'm Megan McDonald Paulson, Executive Director of Chicago Ideas. On behalf of Brad Kewall and the entire team in Chicago Ideas, through these relatively new virtual events, we feel incredibly energized by the opportunity to once again connect with you, our community of curiosity. We're excited to share that we'll continue to do this on a consistent basis until we can all be together again in a shared physical space. Regardless of our current situation, we remain completely dedicated to connecting innovators and changemakers through highly creative, intentional, and relevant content over the course of the next several months, while also keeping ourselves busy planning our 10th annual Chicago Ideas Week in October. More on that to come. I appreciate all of you taking the time to join us for the first of many conversations in the Chicago Ideas convening series around our quote unquote new normal, and the significant impact that the current COVID crisis has had on some of Chicago's most critical industries. The conversation today will focus on the hospitality industry, perhaps one of the hardest hit industries both in Chicago and all over the world. Before we get started, I would like to make note that attendees are more than happy to take your questions, which you can submit via Twitter using the hashtag Chicago Ideas or by using the Ask a Question box below. Guiding our conversation today is Kate Sullivan, a Chicago-based journalist and host of the very popular To Dine For with Kate Sullivan. Hi, Kate. Nice to see you. Hope you're staying safe and healthy.
Great to see you, Megan. Thank you so much for having me and having me a part of the Chicago Ideas virtual event. I am so looking forward to advancing this crucial conversation that's happening right now in Chicago. For those of you who don't know, I host and created a show on public television called To Dine For. And this show is about people's passion for restaurants. I interview visionaries at their favorite restaurant to find out why they love them. And then I also tell the story of the restaurant. You know, restaurants are a part of the fabric of our country. They are certainly the heart of this city. I am so thrilled to bring you 4 guests in the next hour to talk about what is going on with both restaurants and event spaces and under the entire umbrella of the hospitality industry. I'd like to bring in at this point 2 visionaries in the Chicago hospitality industry, and I do mean visionaries. The first is Kevin Boehm. He is the co-founder of the Boca Restaurant Group that has 20 plus properties. You probably heard of Girl and the Goat, Momotaro, and Swift and Sons, to name a few. There are 20 plus properties, as I mentioned. Kevin has been a leader in the Chicago hospitality industry. He employs close to 2,000 workers, and he has a lot to discuss today about the restaurant industry. I'd also like to bring in Eric Williams, who is the co-founder of the Silver Room, that is both a retail space and an event space. He also created the Block Party in Hyde Park. He started it with just a couple of folks, and now it's grown to 40,000 plus people. It is an amazing community organization that happens on the South Side in Hyde Park and usually happens during the summer. So first of all, to Eric and to Kevin, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it so much. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd like to begin with Kevin. Kevin, there's no question COVID has devastated the restaurant industry. Let's begin with the next 3 months. You know, this is a situation that is in flux and changing week by week. I talked to you a moment ago and you said that today is a good day. Will you explain why and what you're thinking for the next 3 months with your restaurants?
Yeah, first of all, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you what the next 3 months are going to be like. I'm not sure the answer to that question, but yeah, today's a good day. There's not been a lot of great days. You know, going back 60 something days ago now, this truly devastated this entire industry. And we've all been kind of managing this without a playbook. So yeah, the first thing that happened with us, you know, within that first week, the closing of 22 restaurants, the furloughing of a couple thousand of employees. And you immediately just think, okay, how can we take care of the people that work for us and keep our business solvent at the same time? That was the intersection that we were looking to find. And for the most part, we've been able to do that, you know, with, trying to figure out how to feed our employees on a weekly basis and give them free groceries and extending health coverage through the month of June. And then with our business, just trying the best we can to work with government right now and try to figure out ways to help our industries. You know, right now it's all about the big us, not the small us.
Absolutely. And Eric, when you think about your 2 retail spaces and you think about the Block Party, what are the decisions that you've had to make over the past couple of weeks? And really, how are you pivoting?
Sure. So kind of what Kevin was saying, the first thing you think about are your employees. Most of our employees, they're artists, they're DJs, they're photographers. This is a part-time job for them. And so once they lose the part-time job and they lose all of their gigs, they have no income coming in at all. So just trying to think about how you can support them in any way. We had a GoFundMe, we had some things like everybody else tried to do certain things to help them out. So that's the first thought. We didn't really have a very robust online presence beforehand, which I didn't think there'd be a pandemic, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Because we've been open for 22 years, and being in a physical space is what's most important to me.
Yes.
So once that happened, we had to kind of pivot and shift and think about how can we increase our online sales. So that's what we've been doing a little bit. But right now, the last few weeks we've done the whole curbside thing, which is it's okay.
It's a crutch.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all just waiting to get back to the point we can actually be inside our spaces as some semblance of what we used to be.
Absolutely. So Kevin, let's talk about that, the nuts and bolts of actually reopening. Good news from the governor that patio spaces will open. Can you explain that and kind of explain what you're thinking and how you're planning for a reopening at 25% capacity?
Well, so first of all, the governor did just announce that the patios outside are going to be able to be open on May 31st. I haven't heard anything about going into that first phase yet of being open at 25%. For us, being open at 25% doesn't mean anything. I don't think we'll open anything in the inside at 25%. I think we'll probably have to wait until we get to 50%. But for us, I think there's a few things that are going on. There's going to be a state standard. There's going to be a city of Chicago standard, and then it's going to be our own personal standards. And we're going to figure out what those are and how all those things meld together. And the state and the city, those will be those core competencies that you keep hearing about. Everybody's going to have gloves. Everybody's going to wear masks, temperature checks of all employees. That's a given. On top of that, what we're trying to figure out is how do we get that same level of hospitality and that feeling that we did before when people have masks on, when people are separated 6 feet apart. So we're sitting around a table every single day and trying to think about those things. Like, today we were talking about if we're at 50% and one table has people sitting at it and the next table is open, maybe I put all of the mise en place, all the things that you're going to use at your dining table on that table next to you and almost make it look like a surgeon's table. Lay out the tablecloth, all the silverware's on there, all your wine glasses are on there. And when we go to your table, we can say, all of your stuff that you're going to be using tonight has been sanitized and it's not commingled with everything else. It's at this table right next to you. Because one of the pillars we're going to have to shift to, if hospitality and great food and great design are the pillars of a great restaurant, safety gets added to it as this fourth one. And plus, we kind of got to get to 50% to make it make sense for us from a model perspective. Because everybody, whether it be myself or Eric or whoever, are all bleeding money every single month. And we know safety is paramount, but we got to get to a point where the restaurants also can make money so we don't end up with a society with no restaurants.
That's fascinating. The fact that Boca and the clout that you carry in the city is going to wait till 50% capacity really says something, and says a lot for a lot of the restaurant owners that are joining us right now to really hear what you have to say and kind of learn something and are using your words to kind of sort of guide them as they think about the next 3 to 4 months. I want to talk about community. And Eric, when I think of community, I think that your block party is one of the greatest examples of creating this community that you created with just 40 to 100 people. Now it's grown to 40,000. It's more than just an opportunity for new and emerging musicians and some of the vendors and some of the businesses in Hyde Park to come and to really be a showcase. It's an opportunity to have a place for community, and that now is gone. We can't commune like that. How are you thinking and how are you reimagining what you've always done in this new normal?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, we're all in the service industry, and we bring people together, be it through restaurants, be it through retail space, and and Kevin was talking about the 6 feet apart. That is antithetical to what we do.
Right.
Part of being in a restaurant, you look at a restaurant, it's a crowded restaurant, you want to go in that restaurant because it's crowded. Even in retail, when we're crowded, people walk past and see a crowd. They want to come in. The block party, it's at capacity because people want to be around each other and touching one another and just kind of feeling the energy from people. And so to answer the question, I'm not sure how you're going to have the same level of service 6 feet apart. I mean, I don't know how you're going to do that, And the other part of it is pivoting to a virtual world, which is not the same either, So I think this is a bunch of unknowns that we don't know. We have to assess the level of safety, of course. We have to assess the level of anxiety people are going to have coming out of this, the level of fear people will have coming out of this. Will they want to go out and be in a restaurant? Will they want to go out and be in public spaces? We can do the best we can to make our environments safe and make them feel something like they used to be, but it's going to be a minute, And I think the one thing we do have is being that we're coming into Chicago, that we suffered through these, these winters. I mean, this is our time to make some money, May, June, July. This is our time. So we already missed basically 2 months. It feels like. I think the weather is going to play a big part.
Yes.
How people feel. I think information coming out of the city, the state, federal. Do we have clear guidance? Is there a vaccine? Is there testing? Is there contact tracing? All those things will play a part in how people feel coming out of it. And so I think that's going to really be tantamount to what happens next. I'm just going to try and provide a space for people like I normally do as much as I can, and hopefully they'll feel comfortable.
Kevin, yes, go ahead, jump in there.
I'm just going to bounce on and just say on his point and just say, anytime something happens like this in the world where something gets taken away from people, I a lot of times think the bounce on the other side of that is that they want to be together again.
Yes.
The answer is, are people going to want to commune? I think the answer is clearly yes. And yeah, there's going to be, it's a whole nother world on the other side of the vaccine. But I think before that, people are going to want to be together again. So I mean, I'm a silver lining guy, I'm a hopeful guy, but I'm gonna stay optimistic.
I think the barometer of success for many restaurants was something that you spoke about, Kevin, and that is communicating as effectively as possible safety measures and establishing trust with the people that are coming into your spaces, your restaurants, your retail spaces, of the precautions you've taken, and that they feel like you are on top of it and that you're doing everything you can to kind of create that safety and that safe environment. Something they had totally taken for granted, for in times past, is going to be paramount and something they're thinking about all the time.
For sure. Listen, we've lived up to, anybody who's been in the restaurant business has had to live up to a standard of public health for a long, long time. So what we've been saying when we talk to the mayor's office or the governor's office is, if you're going to trust anybody, trust us, because we've had to live in this standard for a long, long time.
Sure.
If you give us a standard to live up to, we'll reach it. We feed 2 million people a year dinner. That's not an easy thing to do in a pre-COVID world.
Right.
We're all about sitting around a table using collective intelligence and finding an answer. I think the good news about this is usually people in the restaurant business are very, very competitive. I welcome sitting with Eric or Bruce and talking about what's the best answer for this, because we only raise each other up in this case.
Sure.
If one person does it in a way that's not safe for customers and for their employees, that hurts all of us. If one of us succeeds, it helps all of us. So I think we're living in a world right now where we all are really unified, and it's actually makes me emotional talking about, because one of the best things that came out of this was that we all kind of came together as an industry to help each other out.
Well, I will tell you that over the past 2 months, I have been getting on Instagram and doing live interviews with restaurateurs and business owners about what is working, ways that they are pivoting, strategizing, tweaking things, doing something a little bit different, whether it's brand building, whether it's creating a community with their restaurants and their spaces, and really reaching. Everyone's pedaling hard under the water, right? But what are they doing that's working? And so it's been really interesting to see from hearing these small business owners, what is working. From both of your perspectives, I'd love to hear what you think is working, or has there been someone, a restaurateur or business owner, that has inspired you with how they have pivoted at this time? And Kevin, I can begin with you.
Yeah, so I think you look at Canlis very early on, which was a fine dining restaurant, which very quickly pivoted to doing takeout and doing burgers and doing meal kits before anyone did. And they were incredible. They leaned into it. They did bingo nights where they had someone inside the restaurant playing piano and everybody got a bingo card in their takeout. And I go, there it is. There it is. Someone's bringing hospitality and still making it to where we all can be together. With Little Goat, what we did is we curated a grocery bag. Stephanie one-stepped everything in the bag. And then we had a link inside there to Stephanie cooking everything inside the grocery bag to kind of bring people together. And then one person got a golden ticket where she actually jumped on a private Zoom with them and would cook everything inside the bag.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that one worked from moment one. We sold out the first day we put the grocery bags out. And so I think, if you can think about the kind of things that set you apart and still has some sort of human connection to it, I think that's what people are really looking for.
So many restaurants had never done carryout. It wasn't even in their wheelhouse. I mean, they had to completely pivot and change their business model. Eric, what have you seen and that's really stood out to you as something inspiring?
I've seen folks from around the world in retail really try and recreate or create the brick and mortar experience online, be it through music, be it through, different kind of sales initiatives. So, I mean, the thing about restaurants, obviously it's a little bit harder because, restaurants experience is it's in the space. People have been buying online through Amazon, obviously, but how can you separate yourself as a small retailer, as a boutique, from a large space like Amazon? And you can tailor what your experience to your customer base. So I've seen some pretty creative things using, the other senses. I mean, like I said, music is one that I've seen a lot. This thing called Versus, which I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's like this person, Erykah Badu versus, Jill Scott. So actually, she's done a really good job at having folks come to her online platform for music, but then she's selling T-shirts and dresses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how could you pivot from one thing, which is music, to fashion? So
That's cool.
Yeah.
Politically, for both of you, what in the next 3 months, because honestly, all we can do is chunk it out and take it 1 month at a time. It's impossible to ask you how you're going to handle the next year, because it really is a situation that's changing week by week. But if you think about the next 3 months politically, what would help you the most as you try to re-engage safely and successfully?
On March 18th, myself and about 9 other restaurateurs jumped on the phone, including Kwame Anwachi and Tom Colicchio and Will Guidera and Donnie Medea, and we formed the Independent Restaurant Coalition. And to quickly, we raised some money. We hired a couple lobbyists. We hired an executive director to get a voice in Washington. And it's been 2 major points. One, changing the PPP loans so they specifically fit the restaurant business, because we're like no other business.
Right.
Very easy changes that could make that. Change the 8 weeks to 24 weeks, and change the time that we can get up to 100% FTE from June 30th to December 31st, because we all know there's going to be a huge ramp up. And 2, do a carve out stabilization fund for restaurants. Historically, America has done bailouts for companies that were culpable of their own demise. Chrysler in the late 70s couldn't build a small economical car, and America gave them $1.5 billion because of their own incompetence. And we didn't do anything wrong. We were mandated to close. We don't want to bail out. We just want the opportunity to go back to work. So if they can do a stabilization fund, some very easy changes to PPP, they can literally save thousands of restaurants and hundreds of thousands of jobs. We're the largest private employer in the United States. And it's time that we got the kind of respect that industry deserves.
Eric, you have a hybrid business that includes both an event space and retail. What would help you in particular from a political perspective?
Sure. I'm part of a group called Civil, which just started actually last year. It's Joe Shanahan from the Metro, Gomez Sub T, The Hideout, and they've done a fantastic job of trying to create, even before this, trying to create policy that makes sense for the nightlife industry. The city, they're not nightlife people. They're not restaurateurs, they're policymakers. And you have to kind of guide them and help them along to what makes sense. And so, same as Kevin, we have some lobbyists, we got some folks writing policy on trying to still stay in the guidelines of what the city and state wants, but also making it make sense for small business owners. And sometimes those 2 things don't always jive. So I think it's up to us to help to inform them on what makes the most sense from a policy standpoint.
Absolutely. Kevin and Eric, if you could just pause, we are going to bring in 2 more guests. The folks that are watching from home, they are writing in questions, and we hope to bring both of you back to answer a series of questions in just a little bit. But first, I want to bring in Britt Whitfield, who is the CEO of the Revel Group, which is really an umbrella of 5 different companies, all in the event space. And I'd also like to bring in Bruce Finkelman, who is the founder of 16 on Center, which is sort of a restaurant and bar collective that includes Beauty Bar and Longman and Eagle. To Bruce and to Britt, thank you both for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Excellent. I'm going to begin with you, Britt. Where the restaurants are one thing, right? Because they can do carry out, they can do pick up, delivery. Events are very different. Large groups of people right now is not recommended, not advised. Tell me what you're doing as a company and how you've had to pivot over the past few months.
Sure, and really not just not advised, but not allowed. So I think we're in a very different spot than the restaurant business. We did discuss many different ways to pivot, and we decided that holding tight and kind of putting down the shutters and rolling up the drawbridge was our best move. So we are fully holding until we're allowed to operate.
And how many employees does that affect, and what's going on? How are your employees handling this?
Sure. It affects a lot of employees. So we furloughed over 600 employees, and the majority remain on furlough. And I think that, like Kevin said, I don't really have that same crystal ball to understand exactly just yet until we get maybe through another phase or two. So many of our events are really general assembly and quite large. So I think we're still looking at remaining patient.
It's this wait and see mode that is so stressful, isn't it? It's this not knowing of when things are going to open up, but really it's the only way that all of us can operate right now is just wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's really uncomfortable. And I think it's uncomfortable if you're, somebody who's a doer and wants to, make decisions and keep moving and keep growing. I think kind of sitting back and paying attention and being ready to make the next right decision is what we got to do.
Exactly. And I think you said it perfectly. It's just this waiting and making the next right decision. Bruce, with your restaurants, we just heard from Kevin saying that, he doesn't think he can make it work if it's at 25% capacity. He's going to hold out to 50% capacity. Is that something that you also agree with? Or give me a sense of how you've been handling and how you've been coping the past 3 months and how you're looking to the future.
Well, the interesting thing about this panel of people that you have here is I kind of sit in the middle of those, where most of our concepts have both music and food as part of them. So as I think about, what Britt was saying about what it's looking like to be able to have these large assembly of concerts that we have, Thalia Hall has 1,000-person capacity, and the idea of trying to put that many people in there and start the live music train going again, it's really something that's kind of, it's hard to really contemplate, but talk about weddings, talk about events where each of our establishments has a huge private events staff and a huge private events presence. And the idea of being able to put that type of group or that amount of group of people in one room, it's something that it's well above my pay grade to be able to figure out what's safe, because when you look at what the base problem is that we want to make sure that this is a safe situation for our staff, our family, our customers. And while it's great to be able to say you can open up, you can be able to get 25% capacity in there, you can be able to get a few people on the patio at 6 feet across. I mean, those are really great words to hear, but the business model is such that it really doesn't mean that much. And when you look at the base point of it, which is how do we make people safe? That's the consideration that we have to really think about. And one thing during this whole pandemic is people asking me, who I am no one should be asking me about when it's safe to be putting people back in a venue or in a public setting, because as far as I'm concerned, my medical degree just hasn't been mailed yet. So, it's hard to be able to answer that question. And we really do need the medical community to step up and give us those guidelines so that we can go about our operations in a safe manner.
Britt, are you even booking things? Like if someone wanted to have an event in October, how are you handling that? I mean, with the uncertainty, and Bruce, you can chime in here too, because this affects you as well. It's like, how do you know how far out you can say yes to booking something?
It's a crazy thing. We canceled over 1,000 events at our venues when, starting March 15th in the beginning, and these events started being pushed back to later dates. And some have canceled outright, some have pushed the date backs, but there really is no clear date, even with the phaseology programs that are going on here from the governor and from the mayor's office. We're just not quite sure when to do it.
And what about you, Britt?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a similar place. Our demographic is maybe a little bit different than Bruce in terms of the size and scope has a little bit more of a variation that we are an off-premise group. We do have 2 venues, but the majority of our business, we did about 6,000 events in 2019, and 5,600 of those were not in our facilities. So there will be a little bit of a difference in things that are booking in terms of weddings and people moving their wedding to their backyard. We've had people move their wedding to the state of Indiana. So there definitely is some variation depending on which group of, if we're talking about corporate or nonprofit. And I'd say that in addition to that nonprofit segment has a little bit more of a pivot to both an online, a Zoom or a virtual fundraise component. And a lot now are talking about changing what their fall events look like into a progressive or a series of in-home dining experiences. It would just be their close friends and family, and all those groups kind of coming together.
And Britt, I wonder if you're experiencing the same thing, which is when the mayor and when the governor give us the okay to be able to have people in their space, there's a pretty severe ramp up stage for the events and the booking of live events. We're usually talking like 2 or 3 months out. And think about when you book a wedding, you're talking about a year out. So there's a really long leap that we've got to get to, even when they start to watch and say go.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And there are some, of course, outliers, Kate, that are booking large holiday parties still in the place of unknown that we are. And I love the optimism that comes out of that kind of buyer, but I do still think we have a lot to find out.
Well, to both of you, in the absence of not really being able to move forward in any way, kind of a twofold question. What are you doing to strategize, pivot? How are you spending your energy to sort of move the ball forward in a business that feels very stagnant? And second of all, has anyone done something that has really inspired you, or you've seen something that is working in this space currently?
Well, I'll go first here. One of the things that we focused on when that late March date hit was we as a company put out a mission that we would start looking at strengthening to grow. And it's been such a big growth period for us as a company. And this gave us the opportunity to kind of break things down, make sure that we were strong, and make sure that we could take a look at all aspects of our business so that when we did reopen, we were building with stronger legs and a stronger foundation to be able to grow into the future. So that was really important to us, to kind of focus on. And as far as like the creativity that's out there, there's not a day that goes by that I see somebody doing something. I did carry out from Galit last night, which is a wonderful restaurant, and to see the carry out options that they had and the way that they put out their food was incredible. And I did Oriole last week, and Noah Sandoval, what he was doing with his food, it's just creativity over and over and over, and seeing people pivot. It's just amazing.
It really is inspiring. And you love when you see something that, the people that are, especially the people that are in your kitchen, the people that are in your kitchens, and the creativity and the go that they have, that doesn't stop, that doesn't pause because of COVID. So it's fantastic for me as someone who's a producer in the television space to watch it and to see it and to get inspired by the fact that even though we're all at home alone together, people are still trying and innovating in different ways.
And how it sparks the interest of our people. I mean, to see what our staff is trying to do, and the phone calls I get from furloughed employees saying, I got an idea. How do we do this? Can I do this now? And it's like, it's just, I'm in awe of our staff.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Britt?
Well, I learned how to use a lawnmower. And I also painted even the pipes in my basement. And after I was done with that to-do list, we started doing standard operating procedures for every department and every company.
Awesome.
And it's, it's really fascinating, all the things that I didn't know about my own business. So we've done those things. And then I've got this little coffee shop concept in Long Beach, Indiana, that is called Belly Flop.
Cool.
And we've reopened it and are doing some to go and some walk-in, and it's kind of helped generate some people to start just moving our muscles a little bit and doing something.
It's all about momentum, right? So that's the hardest part, is kind of staying still. Tell me, how can people help you? What can people do to be a part of your community, or, people who frequent your establishments are part of your event space? What can they do to assist you and to help you at this time?
Well, Eric was talking about Civil, which is the Chicago Independent Venue League, and I also work with NEVA, which is the National Independent Venue League. And what we're really working on is to save our stages right now, and to be able to talk to your alderman and write letters to your mayor and let them know, as Kevin was saying, that the programs that are out there, while we're so happy that they're coming up with these payroll protection programs and the EIDL loans, what we really need is something that's tailored toward our industry and that's going to allow us to open. Chicago's got one of the most vibrant music scenes in the country, if not the world. And for us not to protect that industry and have it open with less venues and seeing mom and pop places go down, that's completely unacceptable. And we need to stand behind it by gift cards, by concerts to future dates, by merch, sign up for the GoFundMe pages, donate toward them. Anything you could do for the restaurants and bars, just keep them going a little bit while we get to the government to help us along.
I definitely think there's two types of people that are probably on with us today. There are people who love restaurants, love the hospitality industry, can't wait to get back out there, but want to do so safely. So they're looking to you as to how is this going to look? What's going to happen? And then the other is, I think there's a lot of people on here that are in the restaurant industry who are owners themselves, maybe of a smaller place. I mean, who really knows how to do this? None of us have ever been through a pandemic. So we're looking for inspiration, we're looking for ideas, and we're looking how to reemerge and re-engage safely, and to do it successfully. I think that's it is as cliche that we're all in this together, but truly we are. And I think we have a community of people right now that are watching us who definitely want to see specifically Chicago restaurants succeed. Does it worry you that we're going to lose many?
I think listening to, the different reports that come out that a quarter of the restaurants will cease to exist by the time we come out of this pandemic, and to think about the venues in our country and to think about that maybe a third of them will disappear. I mean, it's crazy to think about. I mean, I've always been so proud of our hospitality scene here, and to watch, to see what Kevin's done over the years has just been amazing. And to think about that some of these places just might not be in existence any longer, it breaks my heart.
It is heartbreaking. Britt, when you think about the event space and, you mentioned 600 employees, have you ever thought about trying your hand at a virtual event, or working in that space, or finding a way that is completely off the wall, something you'd never thought about, but that could bring people together and create that sense of community?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us and for the type of people that we service, there's maybe a hybrid. I don't know if I think that Zoom is the only answer,
right?
Or that just going back to 1,000 people in a room is an answer. So I do think that there's some creativity around what those sort of hybrids look like.
Yes.
But ultimately, just touching on the collapse of businesses in our industry, I think it's really going to be absolutely horrible.
Yes.
I think in this really sad way, it does open up opportunity for others. And I think it does open a lot of opportunity for Revel. It's an opportunity that nobody wants to have be presented to them.
Completely understand. I've spent a lot of time on Instagram doing interviews because I can't actually go to restaurants and interview people in them. But I can still tell the stories of restaurants, right? I can still tell the stories of chefs, still tell why people love restaurants. So I've been trying to do that at To Dine For TV. That's my Instagram handle. And, just anecdotally, DJ Nice, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is hosting these quarantine DJ sets that are like 5 hours long.
It's all about drive-in theaters.
Yes, and drive-in theaters too. I
That's
agree.
that's where I'm putting my money.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, this time I'd like to start taking some questions, if you don't mind. And I'd like to bring Eric Williams of the Silver Room and Kevin Boehm of Boca Group back and kind of throw a few questions at you and see what sticks here. The first question is, how are you handling employees who might not want to come back to work because they might make more on unemployment? Why was this a pivotal and important question? I'm going to ask that question. And also, are you afraid that many of your employees won't come back?
Well, I can take that first. Well, first of all, one of the problems with the PPP was they tied it to being 100% full-time equivalent during a time period that you were either the year before or between January and February of this year. And so when they did that during a very precarious time. But when you asked people, and at the same time gave them a federal sweetener on top of the 47% of what they were doing before. So you offer it to people and they're like, one, might not be safe yet. Two, I'm making more money maybe than I did before. I didn't blame them for not wanting to come back to work.
Sure.
So that was the system that was handed to them. They deserve it. I had no problem with that. For me, it was always like, that's the way they wrote this thing. They needed to write it in a different way to help restaurants. And it's not the employee's fault that that's the situation that they were given.
Right. And you don't want to put them in a situation where you have to tell the government, hey, I've asked this person back and they've said no because they're making more money on the outside than they are working in a potentially unsafe area.
Right.
So it puts us, once again, it puts restaurateurs and it puts hospitality folks in a position where they shouldn't be. We shouldn't be making these types of decisions.
Eric, are you worried about your employees and maybe possibly not being able to bring them all back and them leaving for other industries even?
Yeah, to what Kevin and Bruce said, a lot of them, they can make more money not working, basically. And then the way the PPP was written, I get it. It was put together pretty quickly in an effort to help, but there's so many issues with it. It doesn't make sense for a lot of business owners. 30 days, 60 days to figure this out. I mean, so a lot of employees, they're going to be fearful. I'm assuming some of them might be for their safety. And if they can stay home and make money, they might make that decision to do that.
Mm-hmm. This question is for Britt. Britt, I am an event planner with an event scheduled at Revel this fall. Have you discussed any ideas around distancing guests within your spaces or breaking up your spaces into smaller ones? Has that strategy been discussed, and what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so both of the spaces that are Revel operated venues are really quite large. One holds 2,600 and the other holds 1,400.
Okay.
We are looking into design plans and pricing that would allow events to shrink to first the number of 50 people, but nothing that we do not have an exact plan that would look like right now of splitting different entrances and 50 people being able to partake in different parts of the building. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be part of our plan moving forward.
Will your restaurants, and this is a question for Kevin and Eric and Bruce, will your restaurants continue pickup service after they open up when you're back at 50%, 100% capacity? For the restaurants that maybe didn't do pickup and carry out, will you continue that? Has it been worthwhile? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the model that we've shifted to now for a while, it'll be a hybrid of dining in and doing the takeout that we've already done. Absolutely, we're trying to really lean into what we've pivoted to, and for a while it is going to be only a percentage of our dining room, so it'll be a hybrid of both.
But if you look at it from a long-term scenario, most of these concepts were based to have around a customer's experience dining in the dining room, right? And for instance, with Thalia Hall and Deus Ex, we can have 1,000 people going into Deus Ex, and then to say, oh, but we're going to offer carry out too, it would really affect people dining in the dining room, and you just can't do that. So it's going to be something to have to try and figure out as this thing starts to come back to life. And as what Kevin's saying, I don't really foresee opening up with 25% capacity, 30%, 40, even 50 is kind of precarious. So it's going to be interesting to see how that comes back.
You know, the word restaurant actually means to restore one's spirit. And it is the hospitality industry, you know, going to a restaurant, the act of going to a restaurant is more than just a meal. It's a chance to walk in feeling one way and to walk out another way. So that cannot happen with carryout. That cannot happen with pickup. You can have a great meal, but it's a very different experience, and you're creating experiences for people. Have you thought about how you're going to do this? We talked about not 25%, but even at 50% capacity, are there little things you can do to, in this new normal, create you're transporting people and giving them that experience?
I think absolutely. You know, it's going to be different. We're going to have masks on, but there's still going to be communication. And you know, one of my favorite quotes is a Maya Angelou quote, which is, you know, years after you've met somebody for the first time, you won't remember what the dialogue was, but you remember how they made you feel. Hospitality is about how you made somebody feel. So if that table next to it with that mise on it makes them feel more comfortable about being in the space, that's providing somebody with hospitality. And honestly, you can hug somebody by the way that you look at them with your eyes. I can look at somebody I haven't seen for a long, long time and be like, oh my gosh, you know, and do this.
Yes.
If you still want to put that emotion out to somebody else, you can get it across. So I think we'll be emotional in the same way, maybe just without the full virtual hug. I'm virtual hugging all of you guys, by the way. Britt, Eric, Bruce, mad respect for all of what you guys do, and we're all in it together. I know it's rough for all of us right now, so big virtual hug.
Well, I just want to say a thank you to all of you for joining us and to adding to this conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. It's changing by the week. You know, whether it's going to be 25% capacity or 50% capacity. One thing is for sure, and that's we can't wait to see you all in person soon with a mask on and a wink in our eye. I wish you continued success, and I thank you really so much for joining us today. I'm going to send it back. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Well, thank you all for your participation today. This was certainly a timely conversation given Governor Pritzker's announcement today. And there is truly so much to learn about all the ways in which your industry will continue to pivot during these challenging times. So Bruce, Kevin, Britt, Eric, thank you all for sharing. And Kate, thank you so much for guiding this incredible conversation. Thank you all.
Enjoy your day. Great to see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
To keep the conversation going during this unprecedented time, Chicago Ideas has several virtual events coming up that you will not want to miss. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and head to our website for all the up-to-date information on our virtual events. I'd like to close by thanking all of you who have joined us here today. I hope that you've taken something away from this conversation that has been meaningful. I also hope that once we get back to our new normal, you all make it a point to support our hospitality industry as early and as often as possible. Our next chapter of this convening series will take place on June 3rd, where we will have a conversation around the ways that Chicago's healthcare system is keeping COVID-19 under control. A fascinating conversation for sure, so please plan to join us. But between now and then, we are going to be mixing it up a bit, pun intended, with our first virtual happy hour featuring Sam Irby, who will take us through a very humorous journey through life in quarantine, something we can all certainly relate to. Please check out our website for more information on our virtual happy hour. Start thinking about the cocktails you might want to make. We look forward to many more conversations with you and to continuously engaging our very awesome community of curiosity. Thank you all for joining and have a great holiday weekend.